Let's see here. Good morning. My name is John Von Paris, and I am the chairman of the MDTA Finance and Administration Committee. Today is Thursday, October 9th, 2025, and I hereby call the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order at 9:05 a.m. In accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being conducted via video conference and is being live streamed on the MDTA Finance and Administrative Committee webpage. All members will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. To minimize background noise during the call, I would ask that everyone on the line please mute your phones except when speaking. I ask that those who are presenting or answering question to please turn your video and audio on when speaking. When you're done, please turn your video off and put your audio on mute. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered to comment at this morning's meeting. This time we will begin with agenda item number 1, the approval of the open meeting minutes from 9/11/2025. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Member Rosen.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Is there a second?
Second, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. We will move on to the next item, agenda item 2. And this is the ITS Operations Manager, David Dykes, will present. Subject is J01B46000044 City Log Incident Detection System Software Maintenance and Service Plan. Good morning, Mr. Dykes. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can, loud and clear. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Good. I have to do this on my cell phone. So I just wanted to check. Okay, yeah, I'm ready whenever you are. So I guess today we're bringing okay, thank you. Today we're bringing to you a contract for City Log Incident Detection System. It's a software maintenance contract for our incident detection system. The system we currently have, it's this contract is a sole source contract because we currently have a system in place and it's proprietary software, and this contract is to support that software. It's a maintenance plan including repairs for the City Log software. It is used to detect stopped vehicles inside the tunnels and on the bridges and the roadways using video images from CCTV cameras. A sole source is required because Census Network is the developer and proprietary software owner of the City Log software, and only technicians from Census can provide the maintenance that we need to keep this system going. The contract amount is for $431,850 for a term of 5 years.
Okay. Are there any questions from any of the members? Member Ardinger?
Yes, how does this contract work? Is it, if there's any issues are we charged per incident of when they have to come out and repair, or is it just covers like basically a warranty?
It's billed quarterly, and the quarterly billing, we get a report that includes a preventative maintenance program that we have set up where they log in, and then they provide us all basically the health of the system, and we review that quarterly maintenance report, and then we pay that bill based off of the report and all of the findings acceptable based on the guidelines we give them that we want to see. It's also meant for on calls, so if we have problems, we can call them up to get service to keep the system going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. Any other questions? Okay, I do have a question or so, David. The this is this or comment, I guess, and a question. This is a renewal contract, and this is an incumbent. Is that correct?
That is correct. Again, it's sole source because, you know, it's proprietary software.
Right. And how long was it? How long have they been? I guess.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, it's been like years, right? And the
Yes,
other
like
generally.
ever since I've, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's been they've been.
I was going to say
ever
since I've had this job, we've had city log, and part of the reason is there would be a large expense that would have to be laid out to actually change the system out. And even if we would want to do that, there still would be sole source procurement after the new contract went in. So, but
Right.
it's been here for like 20 years.
Okay. Do we do any when we renew? And this is a general question. I'm not trying to get into too deep into it with procurement. But I generally, do we? If someone's been with us for a long time and there's a renewal and we approve that renewal, do we do any additional due diligence? For example, and this is a general question, not necessarily specific to this customer, this contractor, but making sure they're in good standing. They're, you know, especially when it's a sole source situation, credit, financial integrity, that kind of thing. Do we do that or not? Or do you, or
Yes, as far, you know what I mean, we do vet the contractor, and then if there's any infractions throughout the contract, of course, then you know what I mean, we would evaluate that at the time. I can tell you this one here, this is a very upstanding, good company. They're a large organization. So it's not like they, you know what I mean, they would compromise their business because they are such a huge, you know, company doing this type of work. We actually do base all of our renewal on, you know, prior performance. I mean, we definitely do not go and try to explore renewing contracts on people that have caused us grief through the last contract. And I will say these people, we have a dedicated resource there that's been with us through the whole time, and he's very dedicated to the MDTA and our needs. So that's also a benefit to us that we have somebody familiar that we can call all the time and get the same service every time.
okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the members? Okay, I don't see any. Is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for approval?
So move, Member Carroll.
Member Art.
Thank you, Member Carroll and Member Ardinger. We have a motion and a
Okay.
second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Dykes, thank you very much for your time and for answering those questions.
you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, anytime.
Okay, we will move on to the next item, number 3. Let's see, we have Abby Tamrat is here to talk about and present contract MT 00211-281 way station scale maintenance. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Abby Tamrat, a structural engineer for the Office of Engineering and Construction. I'm presenting MT 00211-281 way station scale maintenance. The work to be performed under this contract covers 3 MDTA trackway station facilities: JFK, Hatem, Bay Bridge. The scope of work includes routine maintenance activities as well as other corrective actions necessary to keep the way station scales in working order. The contract is being procured using a sole source procurement method, since the vendor, in this case Metler Toledo, is the original equipment manufacturer and installer of the scale system with patented software and other proprietary component. There is an allowance item in this contract in the amount of $100,000 for miscellaneous repairs. The engineer's estimate for this contract was $1,606,588. Bid submitted on September 19, 2025 in the amount of $957,934. We are recommending award of this contract to Metler Toledo, whose bid price is 4.8% below the engineer's estimate. Bid justification is not needed. MBE goal was not set since this is a sole source. Metler Toledo has extensive experience maintaining MDTA scale system. It's actually currently maintaining the system under a 5-year sole source maintenance contract, which was approved previously. This new contract is just a continuation of the same contract. Notice to proceed is anticipated on December 1st, 2025. We are seeking recommended approval to present this contract to the full MDTA board. With that, I conclude my presentation and open the floor for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Abby. Are there
Sure.
any questions? Let's see. Anyone? Okay. I don't see any questions. I do have a comment. I know how important, being in the transportation industry, I've bought a lot of these type scales for many, many years, different locations. But I know how important it is to make sure the calibration is right, and a lot depends on this, and make sure that we have them working, and the accuracy of that. A lot depends on it in terms of safety. If a truck's overloaded or whatever, that kind of thing. But also, I understand that the sole sourcing is tied to across the state. The state has a contract, more of a global contract, and it's somewhat tied there. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
The State Highway and Maryland Police use the same system.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for approval?
So move. Member Rosen.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Is there a second?
Member Ardinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you
all.
very much.
Thank you, Abby.
Sure.
We will move on to the next item. Number 4, debt policy, and Yao and Kevin are here to discuss that. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Yao Bom, and I'm the debt administrator for the authority, and I'll be presenting the debt policy review this morning. This is our annual review of the debt policy, which is required by the policy itself. We are seeking the concurrence of the Finance and Administration Committee to move forward to the full board for approval, following the annual review of the policy by our internal staff and external municipal advisors. A couple key highlights in the policies are the state law reference in Section 1, the unrestricted cash target of $400 million in Section 5, the debt limit, which is $4 billion in Section 9, the debt service coverage target of 2 times in Section 10, level debt service goal in Section 15, credit ratings goal in Section 33, and annual policy review required in Section 36. Again, we're seeking a recommendation from the Finance and Administration Committee to move to the full board for approval for the debt policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any board members? Okay. Is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for approval?
So move, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. Is there a second?
Member Ardinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Yao and Kevin. We'll move on. Next item. Next item is Alan Garmin coming up. Hi, Alan. We're going to talk about the trust agreement changes, proposed changes to the MDTA's trust agreement with its bondholders. So good morning, Alan. How are you?
Morning. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
The purpose of this trust agreement amendment is to modify our master trust agreement to permit a cash-funded business interruption insurance reserve, and most importantly, treat the releases from the reserve as revenues for purposes of supporting our annual debt service coverage ratio. So I'll explain the rationale for these changes in more detail and how it could be accomplished through a springing amendment process. And I'm seeking the recommendation of this committee to present these proposed conceptual changes to the full board for approval. Sections 11.1 and 11.02 of the Master Trust Agreement permit amendments. Those amendments, some amendments are permitted without bondholder consent, but those are limited to actions that could include curing an ambiguity or adding a protective covenant. Amendments with bondholder consent or requiring consent relate to modifications or alterations to the terms and conditions. You can essentially obtain bondholder consent through a springing amendment process, and that's accomplished whereby newly issued bonds effectively vote in favor of the changes during the underwriting process, and then the amendment will spring into effect when these new bondholders essentially exceed the legacy bondholders or the prior bondholders issued under other supplemental trusts. We have approximately $2.1 billion of debt outstanding, and we have the prospect of several large new issues over the next 4 years. So we could conceivably accomplish the amendment when the debt essentially doubles over the next 4 years. And I would characterize this as a rare, near-term and also fleeting opportunity to modernize and improve the trust agreement. These amendments become more difficult as debt rises because we have to effectively double the debt outstanding each time to accomplish the majority voting through a springing amendment. You can also accomplish it somewhat through refinancings, and so that can be driven by, falling rate environment where old debt becomes refinanced. So that's another way to accomplish it. It's prudent to periodically update and modernize our trust agreement provisions to reduce costs and increase financial and operational flexibility. And that's all done without diminishing bondholder protections or our credit ratings that essentially influence or drive our cost of financing. The proposed changes increase our debt service coverage resiliency, financial flexibility, and may result in cost savings as a function of insurance premiums relative to the net carrying cost of the reserves. Additional refinements of the trust agreement may be recommended with future financings. I just want to point out that we've made many changes over the years since I've been here in 2007, and they've often been driven by changes external to the agency. So the financial crisis or industry changes and financial market changes are what allow us to recognize a shortcoming in the trust agreement or the need for greater flexibility. And in the current example, the industry is facing rapidly rising insurance premiums nationally, and that's a function of increasing natural disaster loss activity and also our recent business interruption experience with the Key Bridge. And so that really necessitated a close examination of the trust agreement provisions for insurance reserves and how the reserves are treated in terms of releasing and trying to maintain stable debt service coverage. So the drivers for this trust agreement amendment are the rising insurance premiums industry-wide, and then the goal of revenue and debt service coverage stability during a business interruption. The benefits are financial flexibility to self-insure with cash reserves, lower insurance costs to support healthy debt service coverage in a stress scenario, and also potentially eliminate counterparty risk. The inadequacy of the current trust agreement legal provisions is the inability to self-fund a business interruption reserve and treat that releases from that reserve as revenues for purposes of supporting the rate covenant or debt service coverage ratios. A couple other important points are, in more detail, is really the cost consideration and the value of the option to choose between buying insurance and self-funding a reserve. So from a cost perspective, we really would be comparing the insurance premiums annually to the cost of funding a cash reserve. Essentially, that cost is indirectly you're financing that cost. To the extent that we shift monies into a reserve, that would increase our financing needs. So this agency's cost of reserves is always related to its cost of debt. And we consider that a net carrying cost because we also look at the earnings on that reserve, so the investment earnings. So in some instances, the investment earnings can be comparable to the debt cost associated with that, or they could be much greater. In terms of the real option concept, is that essentially it's the value derived from the cost savings alternative. So, the agency has an option. They can choose to self-fund or cash fund, or they can purchase insurance, and any savings derived from either of those two options is a good thing. It's an option for management. I've referred to these as conceptual changes because our bond counsel is in the process of drafting changes to the various sections and definitions within the trust agreement to accomplish this self-insurance goal. And the specific changes will be incorporated in a supplemental trust agreement, and that will be included with the next bond sale, which we think is happening in perhaps December, January timeframe. I included several relevant sections of the trust agreement at the end of this document. I don't intend to review those in detail, but I just wanted to, I guess, illustrate the complexities of the covenants within the agreement and the defined terms and how the reserves might work. In your materials, page 3 provides some tables that may help illustrate how we can structure this self-insurance reserve and how it will affect the debt service coverage calculation. At a high level, the initial funding and replenishment of a reserve will count in the denominator of our rate covenant or debt service coverage calculation, and that would lessen our coverage in those years when you're adding to the reserve or replenishing the reserve. When you have a release from a reserve, that would go into the numerator and help support revenues and debt service coverage in a stress scenario. So referring you to page 3, there's a definition at the top. This is our rate covenant definition. It's in the trust agreement, and it's essentially net revenues in the numerator, which is your operating revenues minus operating expenses in a single year, divided by any deposits that we make to our M&O reserve, plus 120% of our annual debt service. So it essentially, in most years, it's just revenues divided by your annual debt service, or 1.2 times. If you think about the current reserve funding, it's currently funded at $50 million. If we were to add $20 million to the reserve, that would bring the reserve level up to $70 million. So the top table would, explain how the reserve funding would work. In year 1, you'd have a beginning reserve at $50 million. You add $10 million, the ending reserve would be $60 million. Year 2, again, you're adding another 10 million and it rises to 70 million, where it remains for the next 2 years, years 3 and 4 in this example. In year 5, you have a stress scenario where we may need to release money from the reserve. So demonstrating removing 18 million from the reserve, and so the reserve would drop from 70 to 52 million. And then in years 6 and 7, the reserve would be replenished, essentially adding $9 million a year back over 2 years to bring it back to 70 million. The most important element is the rate covenant implications, and that's detailed in the lower table. So in years 1 and 2, just for illustrative purposes, you have net revenues of 461 million. You budget for a deposit to a reserve of 10 million, and 120% of your debt service in these years is 138 million. So the 461 million is your net revenues in the numerator, and you divide that by the denominator, which is 120% of debt service plus the reserve funding, so 148 million. That gives you coverage of 3.1 times. So you'll see that in those first 2 years, your coverage is suppressed because you're essentially adding money to the reserve. In years 3 and 4, you have no additions or withdrawals from the reserve. You have higher coverage at 3.3 times. And then in year 5 is our stress scenario. So we have diminished net revenues that year from tolls, but we release money from the reserve of 18 million. So we're able to maintain net revenues for purposes of our debt service coverage and protecting bondholders at 461 million. So you can see the coverage remains stable at 3.3 times. And then in years 6 and 7, those are the years where you replenish the reserve, and you can see how the effect is that you have diminished coverage in years where you're replenishing. So I think the most important point is really to look at year 5. That's the year where you have this stress and you're able to maintain strong coverage in that year. And that's really the functioning of the cash reserve and being able to treat those reserves releases as net revenues. And that's the shortcoming of the trust agreement, is that we don't have the ability to do that currently. So in summary, I'm requesting the Finance and Administration Committee's concurrence with these proposed conceptual changes, and we'd like to advance this item to the full board for approval with the committee's recommendation. I'd open it up to questions.
Thank you very much. Very, very thorough explanation. Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm looking around here. We have Member Rosen.
So this, well, first question is who would determine, would be someone in the office that would determine whether post a deposit versus paying insurance premium? That had to be a board.
I'm not sure, Member Rosen, if I heard your question. Did you say who would determine between the cash funded option or purchasing insurance?
Correct. Would that have to be a board funded, a board to do that in any given point?
We've typically brought a board agenda item each year when we've discussed, both the operating budget. We had an item a couple of years ago, and particularly in recent years with the doubling of insurance premiums. I don't know if others are on the call that might be able to answer that. I mean, I think generally the management has had discretion about, purchasing insurance and the choices between policy alternatives. We've brought back those as updates to the board. I can get back to you with an answer unless someone wants to interject about whether that decision would rest fully with management or would have to receive board approval.
Sure. Member Rosen, for the record, this is Deb Sharples, MDTA's Chief Financial Officer. a decision like this, we would take back to the board. And at this junction with the springing amendment, what we're trying to do is create flexibility so that the board has options. And the decision to, if the decision was ever made to self-insure in whole or part of in business interruption insurance, a lot of consideration would need to be given to that, because once the agency starts self-insuring, it would likely be very difficult for it to shift back and obtain the same level of business interruption insurance it has today. But so this amendment is really about giving flexibility for a future decision, that for a decision like this, management envisions a discussion with the board members, because this is a matter of managing risk.
I appreciate that. And that you're really alluding to that's what I was thinking about, was it would be a big decision. So we'd have a lot of questions about to do that. And, so on that basis, I understand this is really more.
Member Rosen, excuse me, it's difficult to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sounds
sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. So I understand why we do this, and some of this is to get into documents. So I'm on board with the flexibility. Do we have to also note in that should this provision be invoked, that it has to be a board decision, or is that already somewhere else in the trust document that we don't have to?
No, that wouldn't be in the trusted document. That would be in the operating policy. The board, in the operating policy, it states what matters the board must take an action on, as opposed to has been delegated to management. So between now and when this amendment springs, that would be an adjustment to the operating policy in the future. So so that's how that would be. That's not something you would put in the trust agreement.
Okay, so should we also consider updating our operating policy as well at the same time?
I don't, my personal opinion, I mean, is there's no urgency to doing it. As Alan said, we're a good 5 years away from this amendment springing. So between now and then, there may be other changes that are needed, and, address them at one time. This is not something that will be forgotten. Just this decision, and if we had the ability today, like I can tell you, if we had that ability today, management would not be recommending that we self-insure all business interruption. Where we would be focused on is business interruption insurance kicks in after a number of days. Instead of it kicking in after, let's say, 15 days, we might self-insure between day 16 and day 60. We might do that, or we might say that we're going to self-insure the facilities other than the Baltimore region. Because whatever we self-insure, one, we have to have the capacity, and the board members will be this will be very visible to the board members. As Alan showed you, in the years that we are funding the reserve, you are seeing that, because we are intentionally lowering our debt service coverage in order to have the reserves, because we can't count the same money twice as revenue. We can't count it the year we're funding the reserve and the year we're using the reserve. And so that'll be very visible to the board.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure that were this to be invoked, that it is clear and I guess codified that it's a board decision. That's all I'm bringing up. So as long as that is not lost, because I understand the flexibility, but I wouldn't want that to be a management decision per se. It would be a management recommendation.
Agreed.
Member Artinger,
Yes, thank you. So understanding that this is just giving us the flexibility, but also looking at your example, and since we've had a real life situation, what happens when it's a multi-year business loss? For example, the bridge falls and we lose multiple years of collecting tolls. How does that factor into this?
Well, when the reserve, and let's suppose that we funded the reserve $100 million. I'm just picking a number out of the air, right? And if there was some type of catastrophic event and revenue loss over an extended period of time was more than $100 million, essentially it's the same as having an insurance policy up to $100 million. So the amount of funding available is limited to how much money you put in the reserve. And then the other piece of it is, let's suppose that a facility normally generates $50 million in a year. We would only, and that facility was insured 100%. Our intention was clear that we were using this reserve as 100% business interruption insurance. We will have internal processes that first demonstrate we've met the threshold where a reserve can be used. I mean, we have to establish procedures that, hopefully this is, this is like the Key Bridge, from the perspective of that was our first claim ever. Hopefully this is a never again claim against this reserve. So there would be a process, but let's suppose the facility generates $50 million a year. Well, that's the maximum amount we would take out the reserve. We can't use this reserve to artificially inflate revenue because of a catastrophic event. And all of it would have to be backed up by historical trends that we can demonstrate that the amount of funds pulled from this reserve, are in line with what revenue would have been had an event not occurred. So I attacked this question from two sides. One was from a ceiling. The ceiling for the amount is the amount in the reserve, regardless of if it's, a month event or multi-year event. And then with regard to the maximum amount pulled out, what's pulled out needs to align with what an actual revenue loss is, and not more than that.
Yeah.
So comparing that, if we had insured, obviously our insurance, there'd be a cap also on the insurance as to how much they're going to pay out. And I'm assuming insurance, is it potential that they would pay for multi-year losses, or does our insurance policy just look at the first year?
No, our insurance policy was 18 months for business interruption. And then the cap was the overall cap on the policy, which was $350 million. And the other thing, another limitation on the insurance policy, that is per event. So let's suppose that we were talking about a hurricane, a single hurricane that caused incredible damage and made us shut down both tunnels for an extended period of time. In that situation, that would be one event that would be applying to two facilities. So by having this reserve, we don't need to impose a limitation like that on us where it's a single event. So that's a plus. Another plus to this is from a rating perspective, this de-risks, this takes third-party risk out of the equation. Should we exercise and choose to self-fund, a piece of the business interruption insurance.
I want to interject another example too, is that the agency has a lot of financial flexibility in addition to insurance. And I think the pandemic event was a good example where we had a system-wide reduction in revenue very substantially. And another mechanism the agency has within the trust agreement is that the board took action to advance fund debt service during the pandemic for 2 years. And so we shifted cash reserves and essentially paid in advance debt service, put it in our bond service accounts in advance, and that effectively lowered the denominator, our debt service requirement in those 2 years. So we couldn't had revenues those years, but what we did was lower the debt service effectively. So I think it's helpful to understand is that we've got insurance, but we have other flexibility within the trust agreement. You know, the board has flexibility to make sure that, you know, we can meet our operating and our debt service costs each year.
Yeah, and just to wrap this up, part of the MDTA's financial stability is its flexibility. You know, there's the tools that we have. You know, you never want to empty the toolbox out, but you want to be able to have options available so that depending on the circumstance that the agency's dealing with, you can pick the most effective tool. And so this is giving the agency one more tool.
Deb, this is Member Von Paris. I just have I think that a lot of my questions have been answered by the good questions asked by the members here and your response. Generally speaking, and it may be different with MDTA and the state, but are not the policies renewed on a annual basis when like policies in terms of the carriers, the insurance? I mean, they're not, isn't it an annual review of and acceptance? The carriers generally do it on an annual basis. So, and I know we had a springing amendment before that was brought to us, and we implemented that. Is that correct? We did that, and that seemed to be working. That it seemed to work, right? So, and I know that also the nationally, probably globally, the cost of construction and everything else, and the cost of insurance and replacement and so forth is, you know, there needs to be a solution for it. How you deal with that going forward, and certainly this is a path forward, and one of several things that we're doing, but. So we have some experience in it. I guess if what I was saying about the policies, if the carrier's policies are reviewed annually, and they normally don't go up, they go down. I mean, the cost goes up typically, and sometimes there are exclusions and all that. How do you deal with that? And when you have an existing springing amendment in place, how do you deal with that?
So the policies are reviewed annually. We work very closely with the state treasurer's office. Under Maryland statute, insurance falls under the treasurer's office, and they contract a broker to help solicit bids for our policies as well as the rest of the state's policies. And so we do work closely with them, and our insurance premiums are driven by the business interruption, the replacement value of the asset, and just the climate in general, you know, like the number of natural disasters, you know, just nationwide trends. Those are the three largest drivers for our premiums. So in order we can't affect what's happening nationally, the number of, you know, natural disasters and catastrophic events. So that's outside of our control. So what's in our control? Giving ourselves flexibility about business interruption. That's what the spring thing is. The treasurer's office is in the midst of a procurement for broker services, and those services will include some additional services to help us have some independent evaluations of the value of our assets, which helps de-risk the policies for the carrier. And that's how we're going to try to address the construction costs is, they price risk. What risks are we able to mitigate? And so that's our current thinking right now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see any hands up. So anyway, is there a motion? Is there a motion to advance this to the full board for approval? Thank you, Member Rosen. And Member Rosen, by the way, do you have any specific anything else to include in that motion?
I don't. I mean, I did mention that we would address it later. I don't know if that has to necessarily be specific in this motion. I somehow it'd be good to know that it will in fact be addressed later when we revisit the operating policies at whatever point we do.
Okay. So all right. So you've made a motion. Thank you for the clarification. And is there a second?
Second, so Member Carroll.
Okay, thank you, Member Carroll. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Alan and Deb, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes all of the approval items at this point. And then we have two more items on the agenda, and they are updates. And Chantel is here, and Tyler to update us on the Canton Development Company. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Tyler Horner. I'm the president and CEO of Canton Development Company. Give you a rundown on how 2024 has gone and up to where we are today. Give you a little bit of a background. Canton Development Company is a holding company who was owned by the MDTA. All the outstanding stock of Canton Development was purchased by the MDTA in 1987 to preserve rail access to Seagirt Marine Terminal. Canton Development owns both Canton Railroad Company and Free State Logistics Services. Moving on to slide 3, CDC financial results for 2024. We have a gross revenue of $4.6 million, which includes revenue amounts from both the railroad and Free State Logistics. Canton Development alone, through its investments, had a net income of $113,000 in their investments for 2024, and the net income of both Canton Railroad and Free State Logistics Services combined was $63,000. I expect that number to go up as we're still collecting on billing from 2024. As some of you may know, 2024 was a little bit of a rough ride for us. We transitioned from having things done in-house to outsourcing. In the beginning of 2024, we had 4 people here in executive and administrative positions, plus a person overseeing the daily operation of the railroad, as well as the transload and Free State logistic operations. Now we're down to 1, and you're looking at him. And in the process, we outsourced our accounting and human resources and some of our land management and collecting of revenue for right-of-ways and things of that sort to another firm. But the outsourcing of the accounting on the first go around, which occurred right around May of 24, was a bit of a rough ride for us. I believe the company was overwhelmed and underestimated what we required for billing and accounting purposes on the railroad side, not so much Canton Development and Free State Logistics. So in the end of September, we hired a second accounting firm to take over from where the first outsourced accounting firm left off. and they kind of walked into a mess. And the accounting firm we have now is called Bowers out of New York. They specialize in short line railroad accounting, and we're getting back on our feet. But in the process of doing that, we have discovered there was billing in early 2024 and mid 2024 that never went out under the first accounting company that we're still catching up on. So as a result of that, I expect this net income amount to go up by $150,000 to $200,000 than what you see here on the slide. So moving on, the cash and investment position as of December 31st, 2024. See, Canton Development had $869,285 in cash. Canton Railroad had $1.8 million. Free State Logistics had a little over 1.3, for a total cash amount of a little over $4 million. Canton Development Company have investments with Brown Advisory and T. Rowe Price totaling $3.472 million. So total cash and investments is still holding around $7.5 million. So moving on to the Canton Railroad part of the company, we have 3 operating locomotives, and we have a 4th one that is on standby. It's in need of a little bit of repair, but nothing major. We have 16 employees now, and that was down from the 20 to 21 employees we had in early 2024. We still have 16 route miles, 24 customers. Our 2024 carloads for Canton Railroad was just about 3,000, and our 2024 revenue was $3.54 million. Our future growth opportunities for Canton Railroad, since the acquisition of the King Street property, we are looking to have a customer locate there. There was talk of a trash transload facility there, but then it's been talked that the incinerator may not be shut down in Baltimore City, so we're exploring other options for someone to go on to locate on that property and use rail service. Myself in particular, we're going to reestablish good working relationships with our current long-line customers and help them bring their new business opportunities to Canton. Because of our rough ride on the accounting side, it's ruffled some feathers with some of our customers, but we've had good working relationships with everyone we've had on the railroad, and we're going to reaffirm that as we go. Another opportunity that it's a huge opportunity for the state of Maryland and for Canton in particular is the industry switching opportunities resulting from the NSUP merger. I don't know if everyone here has heard, but Union Pacific has proposed to buy Norfolk Southern, which is one of our 2 major railroads here in Baltimore, for $85 billion. From the looks of it now, looking outside in, is probably going to go through. I don't know the CSX is going to partner up with BNSF, but I was in negotiations with NS at the time this merger was announced, of taking over some of their switching operations here in our area. And it was moving forward until this merger, which is basically, it's really a takeover, but they're calling it a merger, by the UP. When that came out, then everything stopped, because they did not want to get rid of any assets or let anything go. They're trying to maximize their value on paper. Norfolk Southern is for this acquisition. The other opportunity on this is that when NS and UP do merge, it will be the first transcontinental railroad in the United States, or in North America. And it presents a golden opportunity for Seagirt Marine Terminal to try to get Norfolk Southern, or UP, whatever you want to call them, into Seagirt. We were bought in 1987 to protect the access to Seagirt Marine Terminal, and we we're not protecting anything really because we've only got one railroad going in and out of there right now, and that's CSX. What has to happen, and it would be a bit of a heavy lift to get competition into Seagirt, would be to talk with Amtrak as they're redoing the Susquehanna River Bridge and get catenary raised, which is the overhead wire from Perryville to Baltimore, to allow Norfolk Southern to get double stacks into Seagirt over Canton Railroad to promote competition, which would benefit everyone. So moving on, I've had a lot of people ask me, what did the Key Bridge collapse? How did it affect your operation at Canton? And I wanted to put this slide in to give everyone an idea of that. We had one customer affected by the Key Bridge collapse in 24. And as you see on the slide, from May 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, Canton received 305 loaded cars to transload for PEP-UP. From May 1st, 2024, which was, the collapse happened in March, to December 31st, 2024, Canton received 138 loaded cars to transload for PEP-UP in the same time period. So we lost over half of our business, our PEP-UP business, and 54.75% decrease of inbound loads. And that $246,000 revenue loss, that's a conservative number. It was every bit of that. So, and the reason being is that the PEP-UP is an Eastern Shore based company. They're in Fredericksburg, Maryland. Some of you may know them as Trigas. And their trucks are on a route where they would leave Fredericksburg loaded, come over the Key, unload here on the Western Shore, come into Canton to reload. And with the Key Bridge gone, they had to go all the way around the Beltway and come in from the north. And in doing that, that messed up their hours of service for their truck drivers. And we made them some offers of having their trucks kept over here and have the drivers drive over in company vehicles to start their load here. But we just haven't found a viable solution for them in solving the problem with the hours of service with their truck drivers. Because after they pick up here, they go to Pennsylvania and drop off, then they pick up again at Marcus Hook and they make a great big circle back down to Fredericksburg. So I'm sure Mr. Von Paris can understand where I'm coming from with the truck drivers and the hours of service. So moving on to Free State Logistics Services, which is our Perryville operation. We've up until recently, we've had two customers in that area at the Principio Business Park. The big customer is General Electric Appliance Distribution Center, which is still our largest customer. We have Americold Warehouse. And the new customer is York Building Products, which some of you may know as Stewart Companies. They started out here in Baltimore at our transload facility, transloading sand for a customer in Louisiana. And this was a fairly new concept for them, as they had never shipped by rail. They'd never transloaded from truck to rail before. And so we kind of took them by the hand and helped them along and grown the business. Now they are not only loading here in Baltimore for Norfolk Southern outbound loads, but they are also, they've got a kind of a portable facility until a more permanent one is built at the Perryville site, where they're loading 3 to 10 carloads a month out of there. So up at Free State, we have 2 locomotives. Our 2024 carloads for Free State was 4,877, of a majority of that coming from the GE warehouse. 2024 revenue was a little over $835,000. So our plan for continued growth at Free State is we want to locate and develop a site nearby for transloading. Cecil County is growing by leaps and bounds along the I-95 corridor with warehousing, and we would like to participate in that by trying to find a place along the CSX main line there to locate a transload facility. We have found a site that belongs to Martin Marietta, but we have not made any headway on trying to get that site from them, whether it be in form of a lease or a buy to develop that. Beginning in late 2025, 2026, both GE and Americold are projecting higher carload numbers for their Perryville locations. Americold, they process frozen French fries, and they were doing quite a bit with Chick-fil-A at their facility in Perryville. And then in February of 25, they quit receiving carloads. Now they're telling us that the carloads were supposed to start back in October. And now we're looking at November, December, but they're projecting a 60% increase in carloads versus what we received in 2024. So that's a good sign. GE, because of the things changing with the tariffs, they are pulling some of their production out of Mexico and relocating it to Louisville, Kentucky, which is one of their larger plants. And as a result, they want to increase carloads coming into the Perryville location, which is a distribution site for their white goods. So that's a promising thing as well. So we've got some good things in the works, and we just need to bring them across the finish line, and we'll be good. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
Member Artinger?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that update. Is there any way that we could get a comparative income statement for multi-years? Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No?
Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear my original question? I don't know if you did or not.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Okay, sorry. Is there any way we can get a comparative income statement for multi-years? For
You
23
can,
and
yes.
24? Okay.
Yes.
That would be
Now
great.
24, we're still going through, we're closing out our audit for 2024 now. So it has not been completed. And that's why tax provision information was not on this presentation versus presentations in the past, because the audit is not complete. So when we get that audit complete, we will have, if the numbers weren't solid, I didn't want to put it on here. So
Okay.
we will get you some information after the audit is complete, which we expect it to happen between now and the end of the month at the very latest.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
And
Thank
member
you.
Arninger, Canton Viaduct, I'm sorry, Canton Railroad, I have Viaduct on my mind, where they're headquartered. That they are on a calendar year basis, not a fiscal year basis as us. So, and each year finance receives their financial statements, so that we can make sure that we have any type of comparison. And, the financial statements are done on an accrual basis. So if there is any, I'm calling it catch up, to be done, that's reflected in statements. So it allows for comparison from activity, actual services provided. It will allow for the comparison year to year, because, statements are on an accrual basis.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deb. Any other questions? Cindy, you have anything further? Any other questions? Okay. I guess, Tyler, I just want to thank you for your report here and presentation. Very thorough. Obviously, you've been working hard, and sounds many areas sound pretty encouraging, and sounds like you're aggressively out there pursuing business, which is good. And our role is kind of oversight, and we appreciate your very thorough, as I said, presentation. And good luck.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, and next year we're going to have a better report. It's going to be the numbers are going to be a lot more settled, and we're going to be hitting our stride. We're starting to do it now, but just 2024 was a little rough, but it's getting better every day.
Onwards and upward.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate the report and good luck. Again, thank you. Okay. We will move on to the last item on the agenda. Jennifer Stump is here to discuss or to give us an update on the capital, Consolidated Transportation Program. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. For the record, I'm Jennifer Stump, the Assistant Capital Program Manager. Today, I'm presenting the Consolidated Transportation Program process and additions. This information was also presented to the Capital Committee on October 2nd and will be presented to the full board on October 30th. Each year, the Maryland Transportation Authority releases the CTP, which presents MDTA's ongoing and new capital projects for a 6-year rolling period. After approval by the board, the draft CTP is presented to local elected officials and citizens throughout Maryland for review and comment. It is then revised and presented as the final CTP and presented to the board for approval to be part of the governor's budget to the Maryland General Assembly in January. The CTP is separated into 3 parts: construction program major projects, development and evaluation program major projects, and system preservation minor projects. Major capital projects are listed individually, and minor projects are grouped and shown by their category of work. The construction program major projects and system preservation minor projects programs include ongoing projects and projects scheduled to begin construction within the 6-year period. The D&E program contains those major projects which are prepared for possible future addition to the construction program. Projects are moved from the D&E program to the construction program as funds and resources become available based on the merits of the projects. For program selection, MDTA's capital projects originate from a variety of sources. Long-range capital needs includes planned rehabilitation or replacement projects based on life cycle. The expected useful life of a component does not provide an exact rehabilitation or replacement date, but gives an idea of when MDTA should begin planning and budgeting to address it. Inspection findings used in tandem with life cycle estimates to confirm rehabilitation or replacement is necessary as scheduled or to expedite a project when it is needed ahead of schedule. Regulatory compliance includes projects for EPA-mandated stormwater management, increased capacity needs based on traffic forecast recommendations, local priority letters and legislative requests established each year as Maryland counties and Baltimore City are asked to submit a list of priorities for the state transportation system. Once identified, projects are prioritized based on customer needs for safety and security or increased capacity through improvements or system preservation. Funding availability to budget for identified projects is based on MDTA's 6-year financial forecast, which considers estimates of traffic and revenue, the operating budget and capital budget, debt service payments, the potential need for future bond sales and toll increases, and compliance with financial standards. The fiscal year 26 to 31 final CTP to be presented for approval at a future meeting includes 4 new projects, which are detailed in Attachment A. Those 4 projects are the Chesapeake Bay Water Quality Restoration, which is a multi-area project, the FMT Utility Rooms Electrical and Structural Rehabilitation, which is a Fort McHenry Tunnel project, the NetApp Unified Storage Harbor Replacement, which is a multi-area project, and the Bay Bridge Suspension Span Anchorage Concrete and Navigation Lighting Rehabilitation, which is a Bay Bridge project. This concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions here. Anyway, it's an important report. We appreciate all you do to gather the information and present it to us. I find it very helpful, and just thank you again for doing that. Okay.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay. We've covered everything on the agenda, so we are ready to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. Is there a second?
Member Artinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Artinger. We have a motion and a second, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has participated in this meeting, prepared all the materials. There's a lot that goes behind it. We we covered a lot of material today. Very important. So I want to thank everyone for that. So all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Great day.